This podcast is brought to you by Absolute Collagen, which is all about reducing the signs of aging. Available in convenient powder or liquid sachets. Find out more at absolutecollagen.com. Adam Buxton.
Hello.
Your biological age.
Oh!
Hello and welcome to What's My Age Again, the podcast that's all about aging. What makes you feel old? How can we stay feeling young? This week's guest is a TV presenter, actor, and podcaster. He's interviewed some incredible people, including Sir Paul McCartney and Tom Hanks. But today, I am the one asking the questions. Adam Buxton is 55 years old, but if you've already seen the movie Hot Fuzz, you've witnessed him dying when a church spire fell and landed on his head. Yeesh. He's a man of many talents, a writer, performer, and he's shot to fame as one half of Channel 4 comedy series Adam and Joe. He lives with his family and his dog Rosie in Norfolk, and he's been kind enough to give me a sample of his blood so we can test his biological age. We'll reveal the results when we're joined by resident scientist Dr. Nicola Conlon later in the podcast. Adam Buxton, welcome.
Hello, Catherine. So nice to see you.
It's nice to see you. Are you very often a guest on other people's podcasts?
Well, I've got a book to promote, so it's happening a little bit, but I'm trying to keep it to a minimum. And this one, I thought, this sounds good. It's like an appointment with a beautiful doctor.
We do have a beautiful doctor, a real one coming out.
Yeah, but you're also, you're like a beautiful psychologist doctor.
That is true. I am beautiful. Did you want to promote your book so badly that you thought nothing of giving us your blood, or did that scare you a little bit?
I didn't realize that was the deal.
Okay, yeah.
So I said yes when I saw your name.
Fine.
And then it was revealed to me that first I had to have a blood test.
Yeah.
And then it was revealed to me that I had to fill out quite a long medical questionnaire.
Sorry about that.
At that point, I emailed my publicist and said, I'm feeling very uncomfortable about Catherine's podcast.
Yeah.
Is there any way I can get out of it? And she said, not really at this point. It'll be fine. And they won't share your data with anyone. I said, can I get that in writing? And she said, no.
It's not true. It's
Right.
already in the hands of Jeff Bezos. Are you prepared to give us the semen sample now, or would you rather wait till the end?
I just
You
did
did get
that.
it. Great.
Yes.
You're 55.
Yes, I am. Although today I'm dressed as a 16-year-old boy because I didn't realize we were going to be filmed, because I'm not used to the filmed podcast universe.
You and I had a little chat about this in the corridor. I feel that, not to age you even further, I feel like you are the godfather of podcasting.
Thank you.
I appreciate your work so much, and I am completely on board with your reluctance to be dragged into this whole, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the visual world.
I don't like it.
I was trying to stamp it out by doing a podcast, and now it's come back to bite me in the arse. The thing is that I always look a bit of a state because I cycle a lot. So I came on my Brompton bike, which I hope will shave a few years off my age.
Right, and it must do. Though, I hope you're not overdoing it, Adam, because too much athletics, for some reason, is bad. Too much iron is bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Elite athletes, it turns out, have a shorter life expectancy than schlubs in some cases.
Would you consider yourself to be an elite athlete?
No, I am part of the schlub community.
Okay.
But my daughter is an elite athlete. And sometimes I resent the fact because I grew up not liking sport because I was no good at it.
Okay.
Felt very excluded by the sport people, wanted nothing to do with it. I identified with the aesthete community, art, music, literature, film watching. And so I grew up hating sport. And of course, the way things work out, my daughter is an absolute sport genius. And it takes up such a big part of her life.
Yeah.
It disrupts the family as well because she's got all these sport things. We can't go on holiday like any time we want because there's always a fixture.
Yeah.
So I Googled the thing about how long elite athletes live. And I told her that to try and make her feel bad about being so good at sport.
Good. And how did that go? Yeah,
it was great. She was very upset.
I agree with you. They should never have opened up sport to women. You're not wrong.
That's not the main thing that I resent.
That you said. And it is an inconvenience.
Yeah.
What age is she?
She's 16.
Oh my gosh. Well, you can be very happy that she's doing sport because even though it's interrupting your family holidays and it is an inconvenience to you, I was a young woman who didn't participate in sport at 16, and I found other sports, if you know what I mean.
No.
Water sports.
Oh,
Not
swimming.
not the not water sports in like the politician sense, but just, I was very interested in boys.
Oh, okay.
And I think that if you've got a focus and a dedication and you're competitive, I think I would hope that my daughters take the same path.
Competitive fornication.
Yeah,
Sure.
So I know that you grew up very friendly with your comedy partner, Joe Cornish.
Jay Corn.
And also Louis Theroux.
Yes. I mean, Louis quite fit. I don't remember if he was a sport. He was definitely part of our aesthete gang.
Yeah.
So I don't remember him being sporty, but I think he's got good genes.
Oh.
That's half the battle.
I saw in my notes your parents lived to be 92 and 81. You looked after
Yeah,
them.
that's true. Dad lived a good long time. And Mum, not so bad. I personally, anything in addition to, 70 years and 10?
Mm-hmm.
Seems like a bonus. I can't imagine living for another 30 years, which would take me up to 85.
You will. You'll definitely live for another 30 years
You reckon?
plus. Yes.
Oh,
Because I think art keeps you young.
yeah, okay.
You cycled here
Yes.
from Norfolk.
Yeah, that's true. There was a train involved in between, but yeah. And I've given up smoking. Were you ever a smoker?
No.
Well, and what's your age?
I'm 41, but my biological age is 77.
Oh, what's added the extra years?
Stress,
Carr.
mostly marriage,
Right.
having
And
children.
having children and telling smutty jokes.
Smutty jokes is the only thing that keeps me young.
That's God punishing you.
It's the water sports of days gone by that have kept a hydrated skin. Let's talk about the early years, Adam, because this is what we do. We go through your life. I know that we can read it all in your memoir. I love you, comma, bye.
Beautiful.
Which you're here to promote. How do you say it?
I mean, to be honest with you, it's a title that was suggested by my comedy wife, Jo Cornish. Mm-hmm. It's the way that I sign off my podcasts.
Yeah.
I say, take care, I love you, bye!
That's much better, I know.
So Joe said, just call it I love you, bye. I was like, really? But then I have to go around promoting a book and saying, my book is called I Love You, bye. And everyone goes, why are you saying it like that?
I think you should say it as you say the sign off. Keep it
3
consistent.
E's. Yeah. It's called I Love You, bye!
Yeah.
And it's the second of my memoirs. For someone with such a totally trivial life, I've done pretty well and written 2 memoirs.
I know.
And this one is about working with Joe in the 90s, doing a TV show, the UK's first DIY comedy entertainment show. That's what I'm claiming. I tried Googling that just to check it. But if you Google DIY entertainment shows, you just get Grand Designs and things like that. Or not even Grand Designs, but like makeover shows.
Yeah.
So I'm claiming that we made the first DIY TV show in the 90s. I write about that. I write a bit about my mum. And I write about family life and being a parent myself and my shortcomings in that area.
I'm sure you have no shortcomings.
Well, you've already heard that I've tried to terrorize my daughter out of doing sport.
Yeah, I think that's for the best.
Yeah.
I think you'd be a very good dad. A very good, really in tune, really nice dad. I can't see you disappearing or stomping or shouting or philandering. I can't see that from you.
Not all the time.
Not all the time. You're too busy biking.
Exactly.
Early Adam Buxton, I didn't realize this. Of course I should have. I've come as a guest to this country. And so there are certain cultural norms like boarding school
Oh, yeah.
that are really strange for me.
Sure.
And I knew that you grew up, with Joe and with Louis and other entertainers, but there's something about boarding school. It just really makes me sad. And I feel like it must have been stressful for a little boy. What age were you when you went?
9.
Medium okay. A 9 is not 7,
Yeah.
but 9 is not 12 or 13.
How old are your kids?
They're 2, 3, and nearly 16.
Oh, right. So the 16-year-old, she, when she was 9, could you have imagined packing her off?
Never.
No, it's such a weird thing. Like when my kids are 16, 20, and 22. When they were 9, I really, really liked them.
I know.
And I didn't want to send them away and not see them for months on end.
Yeah.
It would have broken my heart. And I think it broke my mum's heart a little bit more than it broke my dad's heart. I think he was busy. He was off writing. He was a travel journalist.
We've written loads about your dad. He was hoarding.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
And but I think my mum was gutted, especially when I would phone up in tears and say, "Why am I here? Can I come home?" And she told me later, years later, that it was very painful. And I was like, "So why did you send me then?" She said, "Well, it's just all our friends did, and I wanted to fit in." She is South American, my mum, from Chile, and so she, I guess, thought like, well, this is what you do if you want to be a upper middle class person in the UK. You're Canadian, right?
I am.
Is boarding school not a thing? I mean, boarding school is not considered a cultural norm in the UK. It's definitely an odd thing that people just assume weird posh people do.
I don't think it's, well, as an outsider, again, which your Chilean mother was.
Yeah.
And I feel like during that era, maybe you subscribed more to what you felt was done and what your husband wanted to do. Like maybe you would defer to him. I'm not a very deferential lady, but we feel coming in, it seemed normal. Class is normal for a start. We don't even have class in Canada. Like we literally don't, but we don't have that structural, we don't have ancestral wealth or property portfolios. That just doesn't exist because our country's so young. So we don't have private schools for a start. Everybody goes to state school. Maybe in the big cities, there are 1 or 2 private schools. We just, there are no children who go there. And then boarding school, we would only see in films. So it does seem maybe not normal in the sense that everyone goes, but just this different structure is accepted.
Yeah, it's intrinsically linked to the class system, I suppose. And that's what my mum responded to. I think she always felt like she aspired to that world in the same way that my dad did as well. He quite liked the idea of being embraced by the upper classes, the upper middle classes. So yeah, she was on board with all that. Canada sounds like utopia the way you just described it. That's why it's soon going to be subsumed and ruined by the United States.
Yeah, we're on a great track. Things are going well there. We went a little too left wing for a while and we're having a little boomerang effect.
Okay.
It's exciting. Do you remember being stressed, or did you accept as a child that was normal, and how quickly did you assimilate?
I would say it took me about a year, which is a very long time when you're 9.
Yeah.
But finding out about it, which I did in December of 1978, I think, was absolutely traumatic. I couldn't get my head round what I was being told. Like, oh, in January, for some reason I went in January rather than the beginning of the next term. In January, you're going to go to a boarding school. What's a boarding school? Oh, you sleep there. It's fun. There's a dormitory. It's full of kids. There's games. You have midnight feasts. Everyone has. I was like, wait, shut up. I'm going to be sent away and I'm going to be there and I'm not going to come home and you won't be there. I really liked my parents.
Yeah.
I couldn't get my head around it. And I just sort of blocked it out, I think. But every time I thought about it, it was like I'd been diagnosed with something terminal. It was like, oh my God, this is happening in January. Christmas wasn't nearly as fun as it normally would be.
Oh, what a weird Christmas, yeah.
Yeah, it was like, oh yeah, Christmas, I love Christmas. Oh yeah, but then I'm going to be driven out to a field and shot in the back of the head in January. So that's a shame. That's how it felt.
It's a real coming of age.
Yeah.
Do you feel that it made you a man?
Well, it definitely, obviously didn't, but because I'm so unmanly in so many ways. But
which ways?
Well, just like I feel like I'm not a proper grown-up man. I'm part of a generation that wanted to be silly and childish, and was able to do so for quite a long time, growing up in the 80s. A sort of politically disengaged and obsessed by films and TV and things like that. And then I made a career out of that with Joe, being silly and childish, waggling toys around, arranging fridge magnet letters into the credits of our TV show. Everything about it was childlike and childish. So going to boarding school didn't turn me into a grown-up man. But I suppose, I don't know. The positive things are that it made everything very intense. So like when I calmed down, when I stopped being very upset every time I went back there, I started to enjoy the friendships I made there. And it was co-ed. So not only did I make really close friendships with boys, but I also did with girls, and that was really nice. And I loved being around girls. But then I went to another school after that was just boys, and that was another period of sadness of just being around teenage boys.
Yeah.
But so I valued those things, like the very intense friendships and the strong emotional experiences, which I think are that much more intense with my amateur psychologist hat on, because you have had this experience of being separated against your will from the people you love, from your parents.
Yeah.
So all the emotional attachments are really powerful and very memorable, you know. And that's good in some ways because you're living at a intense emotional pitch, which is fun and dramatic. But it's bad in other ways because I think it probably made relationships with women quite difficult later on. Do you know what I mean? Because I always felt like, please don't dump me.
Oh, that is a real green flag.
Yeah.
We like that. I'm comforted that it was co-ed at least for a while.
Yeah.
Because it didn't become Lord of the Flies until, you know, further down the road. And then just these boys and these, because I do see these systems turn a lot of really innocent children into these hardened, emotionless men, like, and then they go into politics and they want to destroy lives, seems purposefully, and they're not as playful. So what was it, do you think, about your crew that you were able to remain so childlike and silly and fun?
I suppose because I gravitated towards other silly people, and I didn't like those manly men when I got to a male-only educational environment. I didn't have anything in common with them. They were the sporty people, so I didn't like the sports stuff. I wasn't academic, so...
Weren't you?
No.
That's shocking to me.
And the only thing I was good at was art. So I liked the people in the art room. And luckily that was Joe and Louis.
Yeah.
And we all liked music. We all liked movies. We all liked drinking to excess. So we would do those things on weekends and live in a lovely, immature bubble.
Fun. And what elements of your upbringing do you think you've carried over into your own family? So you didn't send the kids to boarding school?
No. There's lots of things that I do regret as far as what kind of man I am and what kind of parent I've been. But I think one of the positive things about my relationship with my children is that it is quite emotional, and we are able to talk about things in a more emotional way than my parents ever did with me, which I think is valuable. I think you can go too far with it. But I think that part of our relationship is quite good, and we have fun, and it's fun eating together in the evenings, and we laugh. They think I'm very funny because I am. They love everything I do. They've read all my books. Now I'm being ironic. But
do they, though? Because I'm sure the 16-year-old is a little bit spicy like mine, even though yours is an athlete. But to the older ones, do they boomerang back and now they admit that they think you're funny?
Well,
not yet.
Not quite yet. I mean, I think they're sort of impressed by bits of what I do.
Okay.
Every now and again, like, you know, I've worked with Radiohead, and now they are at the age where they're impressed by Radiohead, you know. So it's like, oh, you know, they hadn't really put all those things together. So they'll be talking about how amazing Radiohead are, and then I can say, oh, look, I work with them. And they're like, really? And so that's quite fun.
Isn't it funny? They don't acknowledge the life that you've had, and then
no, they were totally disconnected from that before. Also, my wife doesn't want to have anything to do with my professional life.
Fine.
Because she finds it cringy, I believe the word is.
Cringy, but she likes spending the money.
Exactly.
This is you know, sometimes I'm a feminist, but I take the side of the dad a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Because a lot of my male friends are comedians, and I said, hang on a minute, you're not that cringe when you're paying for the Taylor Swift tickets.
That's right.
But you have a lot of real, lovely, rooted, humble aspects to your life that I think are going to play out very well for the age
Oh, you
test.
reckon?
You live in Norfolk.
Yes.
That's got to be good.
it's got to be better than living in pure smog. This morning when I was cycling through London, I passed a guy on a recumbent bike. So he's basically lying about a foot off the ground, sort of with his head up like this so that he can slightly see where he's going. And there's a flag to indicate to drivers in cars that they shouldn't crush him and kill him. Yeah. And he's pedaling with his arms like this. And he looked fit. But I thought, you're probably going to die soon.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you don't get crushed by a vehicle, then you're just munching and inhaling so much smog and pollution down at that level, surely.
His biological age would be absolutely irrelevant.
Right.
You're going to die.
Yeah.
It could be low, you're dead tomorrow. Exactly. Maybe he wants to die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He just want to go out doing what he loved. Go out with a bang. What a weirdo.
Low cycling.
Yeah, you got to stay out of London. So the country air of Norfolk and living in the countryside, studies have shown, is very beneficial. Do you feel the benefits of that?
I do, actually, yeah. In some ways, I went through a period of being sad after we moved out to the country, which was about 15 years ago. And that was suddenly coming to terms with feeling quite isolated with young children.
Yeah.
And being a bit unsure what I was doing with my career. Joe Cornish was off making movies and doing very well. I thought, what am I going to do? I don't know. This is before I started my podcast. Mm-hmm. So in those days, the country felt a little scary and foreboding. Mm-hmm. But then I started getting used to it. We got a dog. I went on walks with my dog friend Rosie, who was very little then. And that's sort of how the podcast came about. Yeah. I would talk to myself in a kind of therapeutic way with a dictaphone. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, maybe this kind of thing might work as a podcast, you know. And it would be sufficiently different to the kind of stuff I used to do with Joe, because I didn't want to be compared. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because we were on the radio for a long time on BBC Six Music, and that show had a good core of loyal listeners. Anyway, after about 5 years or something in the country, I started to relax and really feel like, oh, this is a nicer pace of life than London. And out in Norfolk, beautiful big skies. You get a good sunset most nights.
Nice.
And so days seem to resolve in a calmer and more predictable and enjoyable way than they used to in London, where the evenings, usually where we lived in South London, it would either be the guy next door who's just got a new surround sound system and he's playing death games.
Yeah.
And it's just like reverberating through the walls. Or it was a guy who seemed like he had a load of issues and he had a dog and he would walk from one end of the street to the other, screaming at his dog, abusing the dog.
No.
Booting it. You'd hear the dog yelp. It was so awful. And that was the soundtrack to most evenings. And I didn't feel able to, well, maybe too cowardly to sort of go and confront the guy and say, stop booting the dog, because he really sounded like he wouldn't take it well and he would stab me in the face. So it's nicer in Norfolk.
Yeah. Sounds a lot nicer in Norfolk.
Yeah.
And dogs, if you're not booting them, at least, they're very, very therapeutic.
Yes. Especially Rosie. I've never booted Rosie.
What kind is she?
She is a Whippet Poodle cross.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's ambitious. Does she have so much energy?
She used to. She's calmed down a lot now.
Yeah, she must be what, like 16?
Yeah. She's 13.
Okay.
Yeah. So she's slowing down a lot. But she was very bouncy back in the day, yeah.
Gosh. And I think it's lovely to be alone, because I don't know if you had any boy band feelings. Like, I think it would give me a little bit of anxiety. As a comedian, I think we work alone. A lot of the time you're responsible for yourself. But if you're in a partnership, then that could end for a variety of reasons at any point. It could be like Little Mix. Someone branches off on their own. Was it tumultuous at all when you and Joe split?
I mean, I don't think of ourselves I don't think of us as having split.
No, because you referred to him still as your comedy wife.
Yeah.
But
I
at
think
the time.
we're still a sort of working partnership. We get together every Christmas to do a podcast, and that's a nice fixture. But yeah, we don't do much else outside of that. And we very seldom see each other like during the year, really. It's nice when we get together.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I did find it really hard to have been friends with someone for 10 years. Like, it's a really crucial, formative friendship that began when I was 13 or something. And really, doted on the guy, loved the guy. We had lots of fun, and I've described it before as, in my mind, be sort of quasi-romantic, just all those feelings that you have when you're going out with someone and you're really excited. I had all those feelings with Joe. I loved every time I saw him. I was excited to see him. I thought he was so funny. I thought he dressed well. I thought he looked pretty good. It was looking back, it was kind of romantic, it seems like, except without the shagging. Not much anyway.
Still time.
Yeah, it's a little mutual masturbation, but not much.
Boarding school,
Sticky biscuit now and then, but that was for special treats. But then when you find yourself joined at the hip in another way, having a career that you want to maintain, and then within that relationship feeling quite insecure, as I did, about what I was bringing to the table, because I feel like I kind of kick-started the whole process of us being on TV. I sent in these tapes to a show called Takeover TV in the mid-90s, and I ended up presenting this show, and I got Joe involved and sort of brought him in that way. He thought he was going to go off and make movies, but I derailed his career early on and dragged him into silly television. But then, after a while, it was just like, well, I was a bit worried that Joe was just a lot funnier than I was. And I had it in my head that, well, I'm good at the details. I like making things. I like decorating the set of our TV show and those art schooly things. I'd been to art school. But as far as actually being funny on cue and being a good talker and being witty, Joe was definitely better than I was. So I found that quite tricky. And then when we were on the radio, I found it really, like live radio, the first time we did anything live, I was really, really nervous. And I heard some tapes of us back the other day when we were on XFM in the early 2000s. We were filling in for Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant when they were doing The Office. And I can't imagine how anyone listened to us, because it's so excruciating to hear how nervous I am. And we were on there for ages, years and years.
Yeah, but I don't think it's fair to look back on something and assess it with what you know now. And now, how long has Bug been going?
Oh, Bug. So Bug is a show that I do at the BFI South Bank, and I introduce music videos. Haven't done it recently, but started doing that in 2007.
And what about the Adam Buxton podcast?
Yeah, that was 2015 that started.
So then together, 20 years, you've been just talking and talking and talking. So I don't think it's fair to look back at radio and go,
You say that. I bet that if I found... Were you ever on radio?
No.
Were you not?
Not invited.
I bet, though, that even at your most gauche, when you were starting out as a young stand-up, I bet you were pretty good. And I bet you... Because some people have just got it. And there would have been something there where you would have thought like, oh yeah, she's got something, because it's like David Letterman I had as a guest on my podcast, and I was looking at early tapes of him as a stand-up.
Yeah.
And he's got it. He wasn't a great stand-up in the early days at all, but he obviously had something. There was something there. But if you listen to tapes of me on XFM, it sounds like a bloke who's like a competition winner.
But maybe you're just more critical of yourself, because I think there would be loads of people, myself included, who disagree. I think that you've always been very funny.
Thank you.
And I think you're your own harshest critic. And maybe we're coming back to boarding school now. You know what I mean? If you'd been loved and nurtured at home a few more years, maybe you wouldn't have that outlook.
I think I was brilliant. Yeah. That might be true.
Is the Adam and Joe show syndicated anywhere now?
Well, I think you can see it on More 4. I think it's tucked away there somewhere.
That's something that would do really well on Netflix.
Yeah, good idea, Netflix.
Yeah.
But
how many episodes are there?
There's 4 series.
4 series.
Yeah, so it's like, what is that? 24 episodes.
There you go.
But a lot of it has dated very badly.
Well, we have to put warnings at the beginning.
You definitely will. There's some stuff in there that I will not stand by at all.
But that's the 90s, and I think your show was so unique and groundbreaking when it came out. And then did you feel, because I don't know how you saw the future of podcasting before anyone else, certainly in this country, did. Were you just doing it for those lonely Norfolk walks with Rosie? Or no, this is pre-Rosie even, Bug.
Yes.
But did you see that the podcasting world would blow up as much as it did? Because I think you got into television at exactly the right time, and then there started being maybe too much television, and now there's none.
Yeah.
And now it's podcasting, which you got on the ground floor of as well. So are these
that as well?
Accidents? Are you like accidentally stumbling on the next big thing, or could you see it?
Definitely couldn't see it.
No.
I mean, Joe and I started doing a podcast when we were at XFM. So that was 2006.
How did you even know to do that?
Well, because Ricky and Steven used to do one.
Oh, right.
So they did what most people in this country might think of as one of the first podcasts they ever heard. And they used to do a version of their show with Carl Pilkington as well, where they sat around and shot the breeze, and they charged £1 to download it. So they were also, they were pioneers in so many ways, but they used to do it through Guardian Unlimited. And I remember thinking, that doesn't make any sense. A, I don't still quite understand what a podcast is, what the point of it is. B, why would you charge people £1? Like, no one's going to pay £1 to download that, however good it is. Wrong on both counts. Yeah. Loads of people downloaded it. In modern podcast terms, not that many, just a few thousand. But that was like all going to Ricky and Steven. Mm-hmm. And people really liked that show. And so when we were at XFM, they started talking about, do you want to do a podcast? We were like, yeah, but I still resisted the idea of charging people. I thought that's a step too far. I don't think anyone's going to pay. But it was really fun doing the podcast. And actually it was the answer to a lot of my anxiety problems on live radio. I never really quite got beyond how tense I felt on live radio because I was so aware of people not liking us. Even though some people did like us, but you've got the computer there and you've got all these messages coming through constantly. Oh. And there was this message that stuck in my head ever since from one guy that Joe read out saying, there's a guy here who says, why don't you two infantile cunts shut up and play some music?
Wow.
And me and Joe had a big row after that. So I was like, don't read those ones out, man. I'm already in my head and that's not helping. And we had a big row that I went home and transcribed in my diary, and I've included it in the book.
Oh.
Yeah. But anyway, that's all to say that podcasting was an opportunity for me to find a safe space, a comfortable zone where I could edit the bits where I was absolutely rubbish and have fun doing the production elements and jingles and create a little universe that I was happier with. So that was really good. And then when me and Joe stopped doing podcasts together, when we were at Six Music around 2011, I really missed it and didn't think that I was going to get back into it and couldn't imagine how I might. But then Louis Theroux, who's always switched on to exciting things, said, listen to This American Life and listen to Marc Maron, WTF. So I did, and I thought, especially with Maron, I thought, wow, this guy's a strong flavor, but it's good. And and it was the first time I'd heard those kinds of conversations, long form, informal, sometimes quite deep conversations, emotional conversations that could just meander wherever you wanted. I'd never really heard anyone doing that before.
What's My Age Again is sponsored by Absolute Collagen. It's skincare you drink to keep skin smooth, firm, and strong from the inside out. Absolute Collagen is obviously a game changer when it comes to looking and feeling your best, but I'd love to know what else you do that makes you feel good in your skin. You guys know the drill. We asked on socials what you do to stay feeling fresh. Hannah from London says, wearing a scrunchie makes me feel young. Yes, I'm in my late 30s, but if rocking a giant 90s hair accessory is wrong, I don't want to be right. Well, Hannah, you're exactly wrong, but I love it about you. If it makes you happy and you want to wear the scrunchie, then great. Joy will keep you feeling young, but it tells us exactly how old you are. It tells us that scrunchies were introduced to you in the early 90s when they were acceptable as cool during the aerobics fashion era. And then I know from that you were born in the 80s like I was. You probably have a lower back tattoo. But as long as it makes you happy, that's great. Zoe from Wimbledon writes, I always feel young when I'm singing and dancing with my 4-year-old son. Rewatching the classics I loved as a kid takes me right back, and belting out the Jungle Book at full volume makes me feel like a child all over again. Zoe, you've got a great son, and I'm glad that you can reconnect with your inner child. Dancing is scientifically proven to make you feel happy and joyful and less stressed, and that translates to youth and vivaciousness. I do not have a great son like that. He's the best looking of my children. He's the least favorite. He won't watch older cartoons. He says that they're ugly because he's sort of been radicalized by the new 3D animation, and I just don't connect with those utopian films. I liked it when something bad would happen. Someone has left a child alone with bears. It's a great film, good music. One thing's for sure, adding Absolute Collagen to my daily routine has made me feel unstoppable. And you can try the 12-week collagen commitment. Get 30% off your first 3 months at absolutecollagen.com/whatsmyAgeAgain. Just use the code whatsmyageagain30 at checkout until August 30th. New customers only, no stacking codes. Until next time, kids, KR is out. And you share a lot that is a bit intense. You know, in the book, it kind of worries me that you came home from a row and transcribed it. That feels very school shootery to me. But I'm glad that you did, because now I can read it.
It was therapeutic. Have you never done that?
No.
You never transcribed an argument?
I don't have to, because I'm a woman, so it's all filed away.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I know exactly what was said to my husband on that night. But you transcribed it. I'm glad you did, because now we can read about it in the book.
Yes, exactly.
And you talk about your parents in the book.
Yeah.
Related to this podcast, what has Nigel taught you about aging?
My dad.
Yes. Sorry, I'm on very informal terms
I haven't heard anyone referring to him as Nigel since my mum died.
Mr. Buxton, Senior.
No, Nigel is good. That was his name. But what did he teach me? I'm not sure. I don't think he was especially healthy. He smoked until he was in his early 50s, which I also did.
Yeah, what prompted you to quit?
Shame.
Great.
I think I just thought, what are you doing? Also, it stopped being fun. I think if it had carried on being fun, I would have carried on.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the combination of anxiety about this isn't good for me, and the fact that it had stopped being fun, because I'd stopped smoking cigarettes. I found that okay. But what I was doing was smoking a joint most nights and having a great time doing it. I'm not recommending this. I don't think it's a good thing for people to do. You'll go to hell. You'll lose your mind. You'll instantly die. Your lungs will explode. There's all these caveats you should consider.
Do you know, I'm Canadian,
Yeah.
and I don't do it because I live here, but it is, really regarded differently over there, and it's fine. I think that I agree with you. If you start smoking loads of cannabis when you're 12 and your brain is still growing, that's a bad thing. But in your 50s, if you're trading nicotine for weed.
There was some nicotine in there as well.
So why do you do that here?
Because it's so nice.
Have you tried it without?
Well, no, because I'm a lightweight.
Oh, I see.
So my thing was that I'd always get too stoned.
Okay.
Like even with a pretty weak one, I'd just be like, I'm going to pass out now. And then once I'd come round, that was the sweet spot.
Sure.
On the other side of the hill, you know what I mean? When you start equalizing again, you're like, all right, I feel a little more normal now and slightly less paranoid. And then it was like, ooh, I'm going to listen to some music.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd have these amazing aural psychedelic adventures. I mean, not fully psychedelic, but just to be immersed in music in that state. I'm a big music fan. And so to go on discovery missions on Spotify or listen to podcasts where they play music and talk about music, that was some great times. And I had a handful of completely transcendent experiences, musical epiphanies when I was a bit stoned. And I realized that thereafter I was always chasing those and trying to recreate those moments. And I never quite managed it. And even though I had some wonderful times in the lockdowns where I sort of escaped into this slightly stoned magical musical world, it started to become less fun.
Okay.
And I was getting to that place less and less. And more I was just thinking, what are you doing?
That's what people say about drugs. It's a shame.
Yeah, it is a shame. And then people would say, oh, you can have some gummies. Take some gummies. Everyone has gummies. Have a gummy.
Yeah.
So I tried a gummy and it was not in any way what I wanted.
Okay. Too much.
Too much, too chemically.
Yeah.
Not like the sort of soft, floaty, super focused feeling that I got like with the music and everything. Couldn't get it.
So not for you.
Maybe I'm not on the right gummies.
But you tried it.
I did.
And now you don't smoke.
No.
And you don't feel an impulse to like try vaping or go back to cigarettes ever. You're just biking away.
Once in a blue moon, if I've had a really nice evening and I've had a couple of glasses of wine or whatever, I'll think, oh, it would be so nice to just cap this off by getting a bit baked and listening to the Fortet Spotify playlist. But then I sort of think, oh yeah, but remember all the bits you didn't like. Remember not being able to recall what you were thinking about 30 seconds earlier and the unsettling preview of dementia that implied.
All right.
You know what I mean?
And you don't want to have a 16-year-old female athlete in the house.
Exactly.
And you're like a pothead dad who's just...
Yeah.
Although the more I say it, the cooler it sounds. And then what about your mother? I will not call her Valerie.
Val.
Sure. Mrs. Buxton.
Okay.
What was her attitude toward aging?
She hated it.
Yeah, the women of that generation, they weren't allowed.
Yeah, they weren't allowed. And she was very hard on herself. And she was a flight attendant, my mum.
Glamorous.
Very glamorous, especially at the end of the 50s when she got the job. It was like as glamorous as you could get, really. And she was one of the very first flight attendants on a route that opened up between the UK and South America on BOAC, as it was then, later British Airways. But she had to look really good.
Yeah.
That was part of the deal. That's where she met my dad on a flight when he was traveling for work. And
how did he pull her? Did he ever tell you? How do you actually pull a flight attendant?
You know, you go all British and charming and witty and give us some of your champagne and I'm guessing. But then they bumped into each other at a party at the consulate in Tokyo and he carried on being charming. He could be very charming, my dad.
Oh, yeah.
And he was good company. But he could also be a dick. But that's, you know, who can't?
Again, though, of that generation.
Yeah.
Like, I think that the dads didn't talk about their feelings enough.
Right.
They did what was done. They had that stiff upper lip. And your dad, you know, when you write about him, he seems like a very interesting, multi-layered character. But, you know, he still is a man of that generation.
Yeah, definitely. And it was a significant enough age gap, I think. My mum was 15 years younger than he, which today is considered inappropriate pretty much across the board. I think most people would go, what?
I think it depends. Like, if she was 30 and he was 45, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Right.
Because what is a 30-year-old woman supposed to do? Date a 30-year-old boy,
Yeah.
a man-child boy who's 30. It's not comparable.
She was in her mid-20s, I think.
I'll allow it,
Yeah.
as it was the late 50s.
Yes. Early 60s by that point.
Fine.
But yes. Anyway, it never seemed peculiar to them or to me that they... I mean, it seemed weird when I went to boarding school and my dad would turn up and he would look like my grandpa.
Yeah.
So then I suddenly realized, oh, everyone else has got a younger dad. But no, my mum was very different. She liked pop music, you know, she liked the Beatles. She liked all these things that I was into as well. And my dad didn't relate to any of that, hated all of that. So I think she was youthful in some ways in her tastes, her cultural tastes. And we would watch films together and we would watch TV. And And she was my ally culturally in a way that my dad was just my sworn enemy.
Yeah.
He thought everything I was into, from the music, TV shows, films, he thought it was all dog shit
Fine.
and would never waste an opportunity to remind me.
Was he the kind of guy who'd come up behind you at Thanksgiving dinner and chop off a ponytail? Those dads.
He would have done if I'd ever been allowed to grow a ponytail.
Oh.
Or, yeah, he definitely would. And also, like, beards, men with beards, he was always going on about, never trust a man with a beard.
Oh.
And now I'm definitely a man with a beard.
On the dating scene, that is true, because they could be hiding any bone structure. And if you plan on breeding with them, you do want to see if he's got a weak chin.
Yeah, yeah.
I wish I could grow a beard. I do have a weak chin, and then I could just sculpt it into anything I wanted.
You don't have a weak chin.
I do.
Oh, I don't agree with you.
It's kind.
I think
So
it's great.
you think only kind things about other people. And then anytime you talk about yourself, you're like, I wasn't the funniest. I was bad at doing live radio.
Yeah, that's true, Doctor. Thank you. No, you're right. But my mum, though, she fucking hated getting old.
Yeah.
And towards the end of her life, she just railed against it and drank her way through it. That was her technique, I think.
Okay.
Was like, let's have another glass of wine. Because every time she looked in the mirror, I could see her wincing and cursing us, like, damn you. And then, but she was always very glamorous, and dressed really nicely and smelt good, looked good, dyed her hair for a long time. And then I do remember that it was a shock when she stopped dyeing her hair. Suddenly she turned up and she, I guess, embraced or couldn't be bothered to dye it anymore or whatever. She looked good, but it was suddenly like, oh yeah, okay, now you are old.
I see.
But then she got ill, she got like a tumor in her skull and her memory started going. So it all started to avalanche in her 80s. And then it was just a question of, let's have some more wine.
So did they pass around the same time?
No, it was 5 years after. My dad
Okay.
died in 2015 when I was starting the podcast.
Oh.
And he died just before David Bowie. That's my two dads going in the space of a few weeks.
Sorry.
That's okay. And then I assumed that Mum would live a lot longer, and I assumed that she would, when I realized that she was going a bit downhill mentally and that she was slowing down generally, I thought, okay, well, maybe she can come and live with us the way that Dad had done for the last few months of his life. Because we got like a spare flat across the way from the house. Mm-hmm. But then COVID happened. And she was just determined that she was fine and don't worry, don't fuss. That was her whole thing. It was like, you carry on with your life. We didn't spend all this money sending you to posh schools so you could have your mum living with you. You go and live your fun life. And she really, really was hard line about that. So I'd phone up and say, come on, Mum, come and live with us and we'll look after you. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm fine here. I like where I'm living. I like my independence. But then in COVID, it suddenly became urgent. Because she went downhill so quickly on her own in the lockdown. But I was just thinking, well, what do I do? When I was really worried about her, the Dominic Cummings story broke.
Yeah.
And you had the whole of the UK expressing their justifiable outrage that he was bending the rules to suit the way he wanted his life. And the message was clear, like, you can't leave the house unless it's an emergency. And I'd phone Mum and she's like, it's not an emergency. I'm fine. But it was an emergency. I should have gone. And by the time I finally picked her up, when she'd been found kind of addled and wandering around in Waitrose by some kind stranger who got her phone and phoned my number, it was too late, really. And she was in a bad way. So by the time I picked her up and took her to hospital in Norwich, she was in a really bad state.
Yeah.
And so she died quite quickly after that.
I mean, we all have, depending on what you believe, like a way that we're going to go. And I think if it were up to me, I think I'd be a lot like your mom. I'd have my kids do what they were going to do, regardless of Dominic Cummings' behavior. I'd be like, you just do what you're going to do. And then if I was going to go, I think I'd prefer fast over
Yeah.
not so fast.
Definitely. And she definitely preferred that. I know she did. Almost to the point where I feel like she didn't struggle as much as she could have done.
Glamorous till the end.
Yeah. Just like, bye.
I love you. Bye.
Bye.
What was your near-death experience? And do you talk about that in the book? I don't want to spoil the book.
I was just thinking, like, have I had one? But no, you're right. I do talk about it. And I thought about it when my mum was dying. And I didn't know she was dying, but she was just having a terrible night. And I was sleeping in the bed next to hers, trying to keep her company and help her. But she was up all night, tossing and turning. And then I was thinking to myself about the times when I'd come close to death. And I just felt so useless. You know, like you're lying in bed next to your mum. She's in trouble. She's like in pain. I just didn't know what to do other than like help her to the toilet every now and again. I couldn't get hold of a GP. You know, you can't. It's like, I don't know, I'm 50 and I'm totally useless. I'm like a silly boy, man. And I felt really bad about it. And suddenly I had this clear memory of being about 10 or something. And living in London in Earl's Court. My dad was away traveling. My mum was out at the shops, whatever. I was on my own. And I thought, I was so bored. This is pre-social media and screens. There was TV, but there wasn't anything on at that hour.
No.
Not even Richard and Judy. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna cheer myself up by doing a science experiment. So I got some bleach, poured it into the basin, put the plug in the basin, pour some bleach in the basin. And then I got some cleaning fluid.
Oh, no.
And I glugged a bit of that in, see what happens. And then it started to hiss. It changed color, started to hiss, as I recall, like vapor rising up. I was like, whoa, that looks pretty good. And so I leaned in to see what was going on, took a deep breath, and then immediately felt like a stabbing pain in my lungs because I inhaled ammonia. And it's very dangerous and caustic, and it had burned. I'd given myself a chemical burn, I guess, on my lungs. I'm not sure about this. I'm not a scientist, but I think it was something like that. And I was like, oh, shit, now I'm going to die because I've just inhaled a load of ammonia. So I went and lay down on my bed and thought, oh, I really hope I don't die. But it was like every time I breathed anything more than a shallow breath, it was like I was being stabbed in there. Anyway, I never told my mum because I just was too embarrassed and I was too sad for her to have such a chronically stupid son who would ignore that. Like, first of all, I was worried I'd get in trouble.
Yeah.
Like it says pretty clearly on those old bottles, don't mix them with bleach or any cleaning products. There's big skull and crossbones there. But they just kind of made it seem more exciting for me. 10 years old, like not 5, but 10. The point where you would think maybe you would pay attention to skulls and crossbones is.
A little boy, though, 10, it can be alluring,
I
the skull and
suppose.
crossbones.
Well, it was to me. So anyway, I never told her, but you know, and I was okay. But maybe that's taken added a few years to my age. I don't know.
I'm going to make a note of it.
Yeah, but my mum never knew because I just never told her. And after a few days, you know, the pain subsided, but it wasn't good.
This is why I'm always shocked that men survive at all into adulthood.
Honestly, I'm constantly surprised. I just think I have been colossally stupid on so many occasions. I just think, how have I made it to 55, let alone 80 or whatever?
Here are my notes thus far, Adam. Maybe some childhood trauma from the boarding school, but maybe you've settled that. You got to meet some good friends, your comedy wife.
Got 2 books out of it.
2 books out of it. You've got your lovely real wife, whom we didn't talk about a lot. I never want to pry, but presumably you like her.
She's so good.
Great.
Oh, man.
Fine.
Just literally today I was thinking there's a poem by John Cooper Clarke called I've Fallen in Love with My Wife.
I love him.
And that is how I feel about my wife. I just think, oh my God, we are just going through an absolute purple patch at the moment. She's the best.
I love to hear that.
Yeah.
And statistically, I think there are studies that indicate men who are married to women do live longer. it's positive for your biological age. The wives, not so much. You've got the 3 kids. You've got beautiful Rosie, the dog. You're in the countryside. Your parents did live to be a very good age. I'm sorry that your mother got ill, but these things happen. She was glamorous till the end.
Exactly.
You have a good attitude. You're very funny. You're biking. Anything else that you do to actively avoid aging?
Aging.
Or to promote good health, let's
Yeah,
say.
yeah. Well, I'm trying to eat better.
Okay.
This year I have cut out most fizzy drinks
Oh.
because as part of my boy man profile,
Yeah.
my daily routine incorporated a Diet Pepsi every single day.
You're a bit of a yob.
A can of Diet Pepsi. Is Diet Pepsi yobbish?
Well, when you mix it with like the weed, you had a few yobbish
It's not Red Bull.
years. No, it's not. Diet Pepsi.
I thought Diet Pepsi was what like Korea women drank.
Yeah, you might be right. Actually, you are right. Because didn't they introduce the Zero range or the Pepsi Max range to appeal to men?
Exactly, because men didn't want
Yeah.
to take the chance of being labeled a career woman. So they said, don't worry, we got Pepsi Max Man,
Yeah.
Pepsi Hard, Pepsi Fuck You. And then it would be like, yum. But it was the same
I would drink Pepsi, fuck you. Would you like to find out your biological age?
Hit me.
I think it's going to be good. I have a positive vibe about you.
I think I deserve 65. Anything under that, I'll be happy with.
We're going to invite Dr. Nicola Conlon now, who is our resident science lady, and she will interpret the results.
Great.
Adam Buxton,
Hello.
your biological age
Oh!
is 22 years old?
What?
33 years younger than your chronological age.
I think maybe that's because I refused to answer some of the questions on the medical form.
No, it's all down to the blood. This is
Really?
Nicola. Take
Yep.
it away while
This is actually our best result.
Holy
Yeah.
Christmas.
It's number 1, isn't it?
because you're so
Yeah.
silly.
Whoa, I'm just going to go straight to McDonald's and just eat and eat and eat. And then I'm going to have a massive doobie and then some heroin.
Whoa. So what could you tell from Adam's results?
Well, what this glycogenase test is measuring is levels of inflammation. So what this shows us and what we can see is the inflammation in your body is like somebody
Rock bottom.
aged 22, which is phenomenal. So I was listening really intensely as to what your lifestyle was like and what have you done. And obviously you did a questionnaire and answered a lot of questions about lifestyle. And, I think it's safe to say, listening to everything that you've said, you haven't had the perfect lifestyle. And really interesting to say that, you were a smoker, something we know has a massive impact on biological age. But what all of this shows is that
Smoke it up.
it is reversible.
Right.
No, but maybe
It is.
Is it okay to smoke if you have Chilean genetics?
Oh, yeah. You're giving a
Because
pack of ciggies in the cot there.
This is
Yeah,
it.
they're all smoking.
very strong genetics, maybe, Nicola?
I mean, genetics can have a role, but it's estimated only around 20% of your biological age is influenced by genetics.
Oh, really?
Like some people do have strong genetics, but most of it is actually lifestyle. But I think the things that really stood out for me is we know, in fact, a study that has recently been done showed that one of the strongest predictors of having a good biological age and aging well is actually your purpose and relationships. And I think that for me, it really stood out when you were talking about people in your life, your sense of purpose. That was really strong, and that is very important. So yes, you can have the healthiest diet, you can be exercising, but if you're generally not happy in life, you mentioned just so lovely about your wife, you have a good relationship with your wife.
Joe,
Throughout life,
my
you've had
wives.
very strong and meaningful relationships, and also a real sense of purpose in the work that you do, and fun. And that's another thing. We know that people that are optimistic live longer, live healthier, they have lower cortisol. So I think it's kind of like a mix of all these factors that actually have really brought this level of inflammation down and the biological age down.
Whoa.
is there anyone you hate?
So many people.
But you let them hear about it. You don't internalize.
Well, I suppose I wang on about it,
Yeah.
to my wife. We sit there and we bitch about
Fine.
all
Neighbors.
the people we hate.
Yeah.
No, well, there's not too many. But yeah, I mean, I'm amazed by that. I have actually been making efforts to decrease the old inflammation in various ways,
Interesting. What have you been doing?
because I did hear about some of this, and a friend of mine was like, oh, it's all about inflammation.
Yep.
Inflammation is what leads to cancer and all this kind of thing. You know, like
Sounds
it's
like
one of the factors.
A very Norfolk conversation to have.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, okay, how do I tackle inflammation? And I think I was right in understanding that part of it is it sort of related to kind of pH balance and acid and things like that?
Yeah, I mean,
Alkaline foods and
Alkaline foods, good.
there is a big sort of trend around people talking about that, but in reality, that doesn't have a huge impact.
sounding like a bit of poo-poo coming from you.
Well, you know, your body's very good at regulating things within
Yeah.
specific parameters. pH is one of them. So whilst a lot of, you know, people on social media will be like, oh, eat this alkaline food or alkaline water or whatever, I don't think it has the impact that we're told to.
What are you
But
eating?
yeah,
Adam?
what are you eating to?
Well, it's mainly what I'm cutting out.
He's ditched the
Okay.
Pepsi Max.
That is
Ditch
a good
the
one.
Pepsi Max and what else? I'm trying to. I've totally overhauled the breakfast situation.
Go on.
It was pretty regular double slice of toast, butter and honey.
Oh,
Nice toast. Vogel bread, if we're allowed to mention brands. Yum. But I've gone to the sourdough, get rid of the yeast. But generally won't have toast in the mornings. What I am incorporating now is like yogurty stuff, things that are
Like
fermented.
kefir.
kefir.
And kimchi.
Yep.
Oh.
Have some kimchi. And I started off eating it. And the first time I had a spoonful of kimchi, which for those not familiar is, what is it? It's like
Vinegar, cabbage.
vinegary
Yeah, it's
cabbage,
lovely.
right? And some brands, one of the brands that I got, you unscrew the lid and the stuff inside literally starts rising up and overflowing like it's alive and it wants to get you.
Yeah.
And then you taste it and it's fizzy. Like
Yeah.
it tastes off.
Yeah.
Tastes like, don't eat this. Nature's finished with this. So don't put it in your body, whatever you do. But
You're
then I
eating
had it and now I've slightly developed a taste for it. So I have that. I have I don't like dairy so much. So I have the Alpro soya yogurt, couple of blueberries
Oh, how
in
do
there.
we feel about soy? Because for a while, I think that men specifically turned their back on soy products because of estrogen.
Yeah, I think that was another one where you'd
Another
have to
scam.
eat an awful lot or drink an awful lot. But
Fine.
interesting what you're saying about the fermented foods, though, because again, that seems like something that's become a bit faddy.
Yeah.
But actually, there's some really good science behind that. We know that it increases the gut microbiome diversity, and having a more diverse gut microbiome actually reduces inflammation, not only in the gut, but actually across the entire body, even the brain. So that could be something that could be contributing to this.
How long has this been going on?
Since the beginning of the year.
Great.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
reached the end of last year and I thought I'm at war with my gut. I'm not sleeping, I'm waking up and I've got some fart issues that need dealing with that are so monumental that I can't in all good conscience deal with them while I'm here in bed
That's why
with
you're
my
walking
wife.
the dog so much. Yeah.
And and so it was just becoming intolerable. I thought something's got to change. So made a few changes to the diet, not radical changes, but I think maybe enough it does feel a bit different.
Would you have a lot of takeaway? Are you eating processed foods? Do you
Yeah,
cook
but-
at home?
Yeah, I do cook it. I felt like I wasn't. I felt like I was being fairly healthy.
You
But
are?
maybe I was going too hard on like. I think what I tend to do is get into routines, and then I'll just eat the same thing over and over and
Okay.
over again.
And that's actually a good thing to pick up on, because variety, and especially when it comes to fruit, vegetables, the more variety that you can get in your diet, the better. That's a big thing that we see. If you can eat around 30 different plants each week, that does have an impact on biological age. And the other thing I wanted to touch on was the fact that you moved out of the city, you went to live in Norfolk, you know, you sensed that living in a city wasn't good for you. And actually, again, we see the impact of people living near green open spaces in the countryside. They do generally have a better biological age than people living in the city. Now, there's probably multiple factors, the pollution being one of them, especially like if you're out on your bike, you know, what you're breathing in somewhere like London compared to, you know, cycling closer to home, that'll have a massive difference. But also just the effect of actually being outdoors. For example, having a dog, you know, you've got to get out. I'm assuming you get out in the morning, walk the dog, in the evening, walk Rosie. And even simple things like that help with things like our circadian alignment. So making sure that, you know, we're living as nature intended, you know, getting out in the morning when hopefully in the UK you get a bit of sunlight, the evening, the sunset, the different colors of the spectrum of light can actually really then influence sleep. And I think you did put on your questionnaire that you do sleep fairly well.
Yeah, not too bad.
Yeah.
How many hours are you sleeping?
Oh, how many hours? I mean, generally it's between 6 and 8, I suppose.
Okay.
Yeah,
I do wake up a couple of times, though.
Okay.
How are you sleeping, Catherine?
Badly.
Do you?
But I have small children, so
Right.
hopefully
Of course
that
you
will
do.
subside.
Of course you do. Yeah, I mean, because that's the big thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, how can you get a good night's sleep? You're just sort of battling against tiredness and irritability and brain fog if you don't sleep properly.
Yeah.
It's hardcore. But I mean, so I feel bad now for people watching this who have no option but to live in a city. And they're like, oh, well, good for you going out and living in a nice house in the countryside. What am I supposed to do? How do they connect with, you go to the park and what were you going to say?
They could just sell their tiny flat in the city for millions and billions of pounds
That's true, yeah.
and buy a palace in the countryside
Yeah.
and sell their flat to a Russian investor.
Yeah, so that's one option. Also, you can come and live with us. We've got a flat.
You do have the granny flat.
Yeah, we got a couple of sheds as well. You can use one of the sheds.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, this is amazing. How do you
Yep.
feel being the best performing guest on What's My Age Again?
Jazzed. I mean, it just doesn't happen very often in my life, this kind of result. And I've got an appointment with my doctor tomorrow to check my blood pressure and check it because my cholesterol's not so good. You see.
Okay.
But I don't know. I haven't had it tested since we've been doing the changes. So I might take that card along, and if she gives me any grief about cholesterol, I'd just wave that card in her face and then push it in her face.
Adam, you are as old as your children.
Yes, I know.
Do you think that there will be kind of Easter eggs, hidden tips and tricks in your memoir for how to be 22 years old if we go out and buy it or download the audiobook?
Maybe. Or I'm just thinking about Easter eggs now. Tips. Maybe. I mean, I do joke at the beginning of the book that it's like, who needs self-help books with the new memoir from A. Buckles? But I don't know. I mean, the only thing that I swear by is a certain, like trying at least to be sort of emotionally open and honest.
Yeah.
And it's partly because I'm a bit of a coward, so I can't really just sit with things on my own. It tortures me too much. I just would rather talk about it.
Yeah.
If people are pissed off with me, if I've done something wrong, I would rather talk about it rather than just tough it out.
Yeah.
You know what
And
I mean?
that is so important, you know, holding anxiety in our bodies, holding stress in our bodies triggers cortisol, and cortisol triggers inflammation, and that triggers aging. So it is best to get the stress out if that's talking about it.
There you go.
Old 77 over here. Well, I so appreciate you coming on, Mr.
Well,
Adam
come and
Buxton.
talk to me on my podcast.
Yeah.
I'll make you cry. Your age will go down.
Yes.
Because you'll be in touch with your feelings in a way that you could never have been talking to Louis Theroux, for example.
No. I had to maintain.
That was a great chat.
Yeah.
But it's Louis. He's very locked down.
He is. It could
So-
be destabilizing. You don't know what's coming next.
Exactly. That's his whole MO. But
All
not
right.
with Buckles. We'll have a hug. I'll pretend to be my dog. You'll cry. I'll put a jingle in. Job's a good one.
I love it. Well, that was career woman Adam Buxton. Amazing result.
Thank you very much. I'm
Thank you
going
so
to
much.
celebrate with 3 cans of Pepsi. Fuck you.
Thank you to Adam Buxton for joining us on What's My Age Again. Don't miss Adam's ramble chats on the Adam Buxton podcast, where he'll also give you the heads up about any upcoming live shows. You'll want to attend them. And check out his new book, I Love You, Bye. Please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. This podcast is brought to you by Absolute Collagen. Thanks again to them for being part of the show. Try it for yourself and join my 12-week collagen commitment. Absolute Collagen are giving you 30% off a whole 12 weeks, so you can see this too. Use code What'sMyAgeAgain30 at AbsoluteCollagen.com to redeem now. New customers only, not able to be used with other discount codes, valid until the 30th of August.